AFTERBUZZ TV Feud After Show Season 1, Episode 7, Abandoned.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AFTERBUZZ TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
Oh my God, Keven Undergaro here with Justin. Justin.
It's another boys' day. It's another boys.
It's another boy. You know what? Shout out to Fern, Renee, and Maria Menounos. Could not be here with us today. I believe we'll have them back for the finale. I hope. I'm still in shock over this ending.
It's so crazy. To be completely honest, this could have been the season finale, and I would have believed it because it was so unbelievable.
And it would have killed me to have been the season finale. Not just because there's answers, but then more. I hope because I want this to keep going, but. Just to end it on, she's in the plastic tent, Joan's in the plastic tent, and they're celebrating drinking Coca-Cola.
But it's not going to end well for Bette. Trust me. The bitch always has the last laugh.
Well, always it's like, right, they always say really who wins in war.
Yeah.
Right? They say no one wins in war. And we're seeing this back and forth and back and forth. And when Joan trumped her from the Oscar, I said, enjoy it now, but that's it. That was your last victory. It's going to be all downhill from there. But what we even see in this episode, we're seeing that's all true. But to your point, we're seeing with Bette in dealing with her daughter, we're seeing that, oh no, like you're also.
No. Don't count Joan out, though. We still have 46 minutes left.
Okay, well,
do not count Joan out yet.
Team Joan. I know Team Joan will be weighing in all through this episode, this after show, but at the end, we do need to go a little deeper into predictions for this one last episode. Okay, opening starts out. By the way, a shout out to Helen Hunt as the director.
Shout out to Helen Hunt.
The great actress, Helen Hunt, Oscar and Emmy, I believe, winning.
Yeah.
I'm so proud of her for this, and I saw a lot of choices she made here as a director that you should put a stamp on it. It was nice, particularly the use of going from black and white to color.
Yeah.
They did it a couple of times, but it starts out in black and white. It's the actual opening. It looks like it was the opening of Hush, Hush, Sweet Charlotte until they recast. And it just blew my mind when we went from black and white to, we did the reverse shot, which was Bob and Bette and everyone else, and it went to full color.
Let me ask you a question before we actually get into the chronological order, because I am so fascinated that you are Team Bette. Who did you think started the feud? Be honest. Before you saw any of this.
Before I saw any of this, I would have said Joan, and now that I saw it, and with that scene with Victor Buono, and what she said with Jack Warner, I believe Bette probably did.
I don't think Joan even knew who Bette was when the feud even started.
And you know what? And
for the Team Bettys out there,
I think you're right.
Thank you.
I think you're right. No, and I've seen a lot of in Hollywood. I've seen beautiful women be completely vapid out here, and beautiful men be completely vapid.
Oh my God, yes.
But then I've seen. Last night, Melina Kanakrides, we were at a premiere of a screening, and she's an example of a beautiful woman who's also just incredibly kind and decent and smart. And, and I've seen I've seen beautiful women be terrorized who are kind and decent, don't deserve it, who are terrorized by women who are jealous because they're not as beautiful.
Yeah. No, and this is the quintessential story of that. When Jack Warner told...
Started by a man, though.
Started by a man.
Let's be fair.
Started by a man.
Right.
I will give her that. Okay. Started by a man.
Right, but she didn't need to act on it.
But she needed to act on it. However, in Bette's defense, at 22 years old, if a studio executive told you that and said, I wish you looked like Joan Crawford, that would light a fire so deep under my own ass that it would kill me.
And she said... And if you peel away the layers, the truth about Bette is no one has had sex with her at 22.
No, she didn't do it until 27.
26 or 27, right? So in her brain, it's like, wow, not only he doesn't want to, no man wants to have sex with me. And I love I have such a passion to act. I have such a passion as an artist. I so want to be successful at this. And the guys at the gate are saying, yeah, I'm not letting you in because no one wants to have sex with. If I don't want to have sex with you, moviegoers aren't going to want to have sex with you.
Right.
And then I look at my own real life. No one wants to have sex with me. So how am I going to make this dream come true? And then, oh my God, look at Joan, who's beautiful. Everyone wants to have sex with her. And she's also in her real life having sex with anyone she wants. And she's super successful. And it seems as though I'm not going to be able to have that. And that makes me really angry, because I have more talent than her too.
For sure.
In her brain. You know, I'm just saying, yeah, that actually makes me a lot more sensitive to
Joan.
Yeah, it does.
Ha-ha!
It does. No, it does, because I've seen it. I've seen it, and I've seen the my goodness, and I, you know, again, I will go chronological, but there is, to your point, Justin, they do have a discussion about unattractive and ugly.
Yeah.
That I do want to touch on.
Yeah.
Because that side of Bette, to me, is not unattractive. It's ugly.
Well, no. And
that angry, like, you're beautiful, so I'm gonna just
rip you,
terrorize you, torture you. That's ugly. That's not unattractive.
And by the way, Bette was winning the war in this whole thing for me. I was like, and I'm Team Joan
from day one.
But Bette was smart
on Feud.
On
Feud. Yes, absolutely.
Bette was smart.
Yes,
Bette was cunning, and Bette would hit Joan where it hurt, but it wasn't in an ugly way until recently. And if you look, Victor Bono even says you're kind of pushing it a little too far in this situation.
He does, and right, and Robert Aldrich says that to her as well, and she continues to have moments to say at the end, the art comes first.
Yeah.
You know, not destroying you, Joan. The art comes first. And then she's a little too ruthless about the art coming first. But the art still comes first. And you're right. All along, she's been, I think, more in the driver's seat in the war between the two of them. I think it's because she's also more self-actualized. She's just so self-aware. That's why she's a great actress. You know, I always say half of acting, Justin, is getting it. You know what I mean by that? Like, I would have actors or actresses get really insecure. I'm not good enough. And I know they're good enough because I tell them, guys, remember, half of it is getting it. And what I mean by that is when you get people, when you can say, oh, I get it. This character, oh my God, he's just like the guy at the coffee shop I see, who's like angry and thinks he should be a big screenwriter and he hates it. You know, a great actor gets it, gets people, understands humanity, understands people. Now, there are other actors like a Brando, right, that are like they're one-dimensional, but they're so good one-dimensional that they have such an it factor, it's okay. Yeah. Like, they just go out and they be, like, we have actor friends who, I look on the screen, I'm like, what? They're just being them. Yeah. You know, but them is so amazing and has such an it factor. That's Joan, to me, my opinion. But then there are the greats like Tucci. And like basically the whole cast of this show, they get it. For sure. So they understand people. And Bette, you can just see, even she understands people so well that when she's talking to the daughter, the way she breaks down marriage and how it goes and what it is. It's like she's so aware, but that's painful. You know, but when you're so aware like that, you're going to win the war. Yeah, but I don't think she's going to win this one. I don't think she's going to win this one. Well, I think because it goes back to nobody wins in war, right? No, but she's losing right now. Look, she let herself get a little too dirty with Joan, and we'll get to that. I don't want to go out of chronology, but she let herself get a little too dirty with Joan. Okay, all right. But Joan also messed it up. Okay, I'm getting we're getting crazy. Yeah. Let's see. So as soon as she arrives on set, she sees Bette collaborating with Bob. You know, and then it's God, Jessica Lange. I mean, the acting on this, you guys, is just magnificent. Yeah, nothing as exciting as the first day on set, and like you just get the miserable old crew guy. I've been here for 5 days. By the way, I just shout out to miserable crew because when you're making movies, you guys, you know, if you don't have people around you that are as excited to be making the school play, which is my feeling. And it's so magical. Yeah. And you don't, you know, and you get these people like that who are miserable. But anyway, just a little, but I digress. Sticking with this whole thing, it's just, you can tell right from the get-go it's not going to be.
No.
We're right off on a bad foot.
And then I'm confused as why is Bette sitting in the director's chair at this point? But we didn't know as an audience that she had gotten a producer's credit. We knew that she requested it. We knew she requested it. We didn't know that she had gotten it. It wasn't confirmed.
Oh, I thought she did.
I thought she asked for it and then she signed on for it.
No, I felt like she got it because as he was doing the montage back and forth, trying to sign them up, Bob Aldrich, Joan got top billing. She got creative control.
Yeah, but that didn't tell me she was a producer.
But to me, okay, so I guess because I'm more inside with filmmaking,
yes,
I knew what that meant. That means, yeah, you have creative control. You have creative control. That means you have a...
Yeah, but let me ask you a question. If you're an actor, a Joan Crawford, and you're signing on to a movie, wouldn't they have to disclose who the producers are on your movie?
No, and again, if you got... No, and it depends. I buy into the fact that Joan's so lulled by name above title. I'm the leading woman.
Yeah.
I'm good. You know what I mean? That's her shot of heroin.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So she didn't care.
Didn't care.
She didn't check the facts.
In this chess game, she thought that was going to win. And Joan, being more self-aware, being the smarter of the two, more equipped, was like, no, I want to be the producer. And plus, Joan just loves it. She loves talent. She loves it. She has talent, and she loves... This is just like Bob. Bob's wife told him last episode, right, that you are not happy unless you're making movies, you know. And that's Joan, and we even see when Joan, and I'll jump ahead, but you see when the wedding thing comes up, it's her mind's still on
Bette.
Bette, excuse me.
Yeah,
thank you. But Betty's mind is on not on my 16-year-old underage minor daughter marrying a 30-year-old. No, it's on. We're making the school play. We're making the...
Well, even when she got into the wedding, and I'm going to jump ahead, but I have to.
Okay.
She really wanted to plan that wedding because she wanted to be in control of something. She wasn't in control on set. Joan had taken the reins from her by stalling the production, and she couldn't produce the way she wanted to. So she went home and took the reins and
I think there was another
wedding.
reason, too, for that. Yes, well, she's very controlling, so yes, but there's another reason that triggered her.
Yeah.
But let's get to it. So it was interesting, though, when we go to... when Joan arrives at the motel with Mamacita. Mm-hmm. The one thing I also feel about Joan is that she loves movie making too. Yes, she loves to be the star.
She likes the experience.
But she does like the experience too.
Yes.
And I think she wants it. She understands it needs to be a good movie, whatever. But if it's a choice between a good movie and her like being amazing, she's going to pick, I'm going to be amazing. But what I like is, notice how she doesn't complain about, she's in a motel with double beds next to Mamacita. And it was the same as when on Baby Jane, when they went into the dirty dressing room and they showed up with the Windex bottles and the paper towels.
Well,
let's go to work.
That's how it was back then. It was a job. It was a job. You showed up, and I don't think
it was, but a lot of them. If you go to Sunset Boulevard, but a lot of the old stars were just. I mean, they were carried in like princes and princesses. You know what I mean? And I like the fact that she's still gonna be in New Orleans and say, "Hey, we're here to make a picture."
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's humid. You know, the conditions aren't great. I would have thought, you know, she would have been more demanding, and she's not. And I'm just saying, I admire that about her. Mamacita's putting out the plastic, right? Interesting. No drinking, right? She's like, I'm not going to drink on this. I want to keep a clear head. And then she's concerned, right? She sees them all partying. Mm-hmm. She's going to go, she's like, I'm going to go say something to stop it. And then halfway, she just, no.
She didn't want to be the party pooper.
Didn't want to be the party pooper. Goes back to get scared, goes back to her room.
Yeah.
Right? And then we see them, it's Agnes Moorehead. I would know from Bewitched, but other people would know her from movies. And then Joseph Cotton, who's just one of the greatest character actors of all time, Victor and her. And I know you get mad because I'm going Harry Potter, but it's like the more modern rock and roll music is playing on the record player.
Harry.
Yeah.
J.K. Rowling here.
And anyway, and even Bette notices when Joan goes to bed, the light goes off.
Yeah.
And they keep us on a close-up of Susan Sarandon or Bette Davis. What was going through Betty's mind?
I think going through Betty's mind was the difference in the two of them. You see the difference. Betty's up partying, having a good time, being the life of the party, and Joan's in bed, tucked away, getting her beauty rest because she's waiting for tomorrow. And Bette thinks that she's a prude. Betty's like, oh, that prude's going to bed. And it's when the light goes off, it's her switch to turn on and talk trash about Joan.
Okay.
If you notice,
it wasn't like, oh God, this is going to be. I'm going to have problems on this.
No. If it was going to be a problem, she would have walked up and told them to turn it down. It was just seeing Joan's. I think she was looking into it, and the light went off, and it was her time to turn on, because the queen had went to bed.
Oh.
When Joan walks, you remember Joan walked in that first set, and it was like the one take wonder, and she was like, oh. Here she comes. Because for 5 days, she was the queen of the lot. And now Joan's here, and it's done. So the light goes off.
It's
and
that same insecurity of she's more beautiful than me.
It's the same insecurity.
Wow. I'm always going to have that stain on me. The argument, one of the first arguments between Joan and Bette, and they go back and forth, right?
No, you're missing one.
What am I missing?
You're missing the one where she and Bob talk. She and Bob talk in the trailer when Bob breaks to her that Bette is a producer. What Joan says
Shout out to the makeup and eyelashes. I left that out too.
Unbelievable.
Right? Wasn't that amazing?
Unbelievable. But Joan talks about, it's the first time you see that they're insecure and jealous of one another and envious of the other person's. So she says, I didn't start off like Bette. I wasn't a Broadway actress. The Academy doesn't see me that way. Right. I was shaking my ass in Fringe. I still have the Scotch stains to prove it,
right,
because they came from two different places. And she was talking about how much harder she had to fight to get to where she is. And then you'll see Bette say the same thing about Joan, but about her looks.
Right.
So they both kind of sort of want something. It's the first time you see that they're both are kind of envious of one another.
And both victims. God damn. Yeah, that's right. I'm always going to have that stain on me. It was to Bob Aldrich. That's right. Oh,
and she says she always has to work harder than Bette.
Right.
To be taken seriously.
So Victor, Bono, and Bette, beauty fades, just wait. That's what she would say, you know, when Bette was younger and she'd see Joan, just wait. So to your point,
yeah,
she was the one who was, you're right, I bet you Joan didn't even know who she was.
Joan had no idea who she was. At 22 years old, they would have not crossed paths yet, because keep in mind, Bette had just been on the stage this whole time.
And so Victor Bono, Team Joan, at this point, he's Team Joan.
Yeah.
He reminded me of you, because he was saying, God, it meant so much to me to go all in one. She was able to conjure all of in her acting, all of these emotions. She was able to conjure and erupt in the audience as she did this death scene. And so Bette said, yeah. And she didn't even get
her hair wet.
One hair wet or out of place. And shout out to the actor who's playing Victor Bono. But he just said, well, it meant a lot to me.
You are giving more shout outs than a rap concert, by the way.
Sorry.
You're like, shout out to
shout out. How can you not on this though? I know, I noticed that as I just said it, but how can you not?
But I'm telling you right now.
We're seeing you guys, we are so spoiled with this show. I'm so sad it's going off. No, you're not you're seeing everything, all cylinders. You're seeing writing, you're seeing directing, you're seeing unbelievable acting.
No, for sure.
But it meant a lot to me.
Yeah.
And that was what you were saying last week about, hey Kev, who's to say putting up all the glam and all the presentation isn't art? Who's to say?
Yeah.
Right. It made me think, like, you know what? You're right. It's just a different kind of art. And that's basically what he was saying. Well, it meant a lot to me, Joan. Like, okay, I wasn't looking at the hair out of place. I wasn't, and maybe the hair being out of place is what made her so amazing.
And by the way,
what made me so impressed.
Yeah.
Whatever image she put forward, it touched Victor Bono. It clearly touched all of America and the world. And I thought it was nice.
But it was a good moment for him to to really express that. But for her, it was you're supposed to be on my team. You're one of me. You're not a glamour actor. You're not a Brando. You're me.
And he's saying, you're right about that, Betty, but it doesn't mean I don't admire
good work.
Right.
And she's a great
good work comes in all forms.
Yes.
It can be in the white makeup, pasty face, and the crazy hair, but it can also be elegant and beautiful and be meaningful to me. So so it's like very interesting.
No, and she took that to bed with Bob Aldridge. And, he's trying to have his hanky-panky time, and she's trying to Joan Crawford him, as she would say.
Wait, was she Joan Crawford him with age having fun?
What's the difference?
The difference is, well, I don't know what you mean by Joan Crawford. Do you mean like seduce him to get something she wants? No, I feel like Betty was, for Betty and for Bob, goes back to what the wife said about Bob. It's their life is their work. Mm-hmm. So it's almost like you're at war. And these are like the people in the foxhole with you, and you're going to the bars to celebrate. We did it. We went through battle together. That's what it feels like when you're trying to make anything big together with somebody.
Well, let me say this. I agree with you.
So I think they're blowing steam.
No. Let me just say this. I agree with you. But on the other hand, let me ask you this question. Bob and Betty later on end up having a fight. And he's like, if you want to be a producer, act like a producer.
Yes.
If you think if Betty wasn't sleeping with Bob, would he have had that conversation earlier with her? Like on the first day when she was stopping Joan's scenes, when she was stepping in, when she was cutting lines? I think that Betty, whether there was intention or not, was getting special treatment from Bob because there was that added layer of sex.
Well,
maybe she wasn't like, I'm trying to get this.
Here's why I wouldn't argue with you, because again, it goes back to what is her end goal. Her end goal is to make great art. If being with Bob is going to make great art, awesome. I think Joan's end goal was to be super famous and beautiful as long as she could. So, yeah,
they both use sex as a weapon.
Or whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes.
Or whatever it takes. It could be creativity. It could be, And when Joan's doing her sit out, Betty, who is so self-aware, but then also has the experience to say, she's doing the sit out. I've done it before.
Yeah.
Like just to get what she wants.
Wait, you have to touch on, so she has the conversation with Bob in his bedroom, and she says Jack Warner's words stuck with her. Who would want to sleep with you? Like, who would want to sleep with that?
Yes.
At 22, and you finally start to see where the first crack came between she and Joan.
Yes.
And he says, "I wish you looked like Joan.
I wish she looked like Joan Crawford." Yeah, that's.
And you see, like, and even Bob's like, "Oh yeah, we can't go here tonight. You're way too deep into this rabbit hole.
Let's go to bed.
Let's go to bed. Like, let's just hold off on this." And again, it's that moment where you see that the crack actually didn't even happen because of Joan Crawford. It happened because
of a man.
Because of a man.
And Jack Warner, who we've seen. It's why, that's why the story wrote itself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not like it was Louis B. Mayer or someone we haven't seen.
Oh, no,
Jack Warner,
for sure.
who we know. When we go back on set, and a shout out to Helen Hunt, another shout out. But do you notice that Joan, her shots in black and white, and then we do the reversal to Betty in color.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Very cool. Yeah. And so you have this glamorous old, and I'm going to go Harry Potter. But again, the old and new keeps, I think Betty's more, I want to go to the new world.
Yeah.
Joan's like, let's keep it back to the old world. So you've got the black and white, it's glamorous, whatever. And then you cut back in color, and you see Joan is frumpy. She looks like an older woman. Her hairstyle, it's up, and the boobs are sagging, and it just, But I thought that was a great choice. Directing-wise, the interesting thing is that Betty, what triggers the next meltdown is Betty says she doesn't need Joan to run lines off camera. So do you think we need to explain that to everybody, what goes on film-wise?
Unless you feel like we need to.
Well, it usually goes in reverse. So I know a lot of who's Sonny Corleone from The God? James Caan. So I know with James Caan in recent movies, you'll so I will do you. You're James Caan. I'm Kev, and we're doing the scene together.
Yeah.
So when we put the camera on James Caan to shoot his scene, I do the courtesy as an actor, even though I'm not on camera, I'm going to read my lines.
Yeah.
To get out the best performance in him.
For sure.
Great. What he'll do, James Caan does now, is when they turn the camera in reverse on me, he's like, I'm going to my trailer. Goodbye.
Yeah.
So you get some PA or whatever to run lines, and it's harder for the performance.
Yeah.
Now, in this case,
she didn't want her.
I love that Joan didn't play big movie star. I'm going to my air-conditioned trailer. I will be present in this scene and run lines with you, Betty, and this will be better for the movie.
Because Joan's an artist.
Yeah, well, you know what? On that level, she is.
She's an artist, and she
is.
And by the way, let's keep in mind that they made a pact before they got to Louisiana, that they were going to stick together. They were going to be eyelash.
They've made a few pacts, Justin.
They made a pact. Like this time, we're going to do it.
To me, this is beyond pact. This was.
I'm gonna tear you down. I don't need you to make a good scene.
No, I don't think. Betty. I don't think Betty can. She just doesn't. She so disrespects her talents. I think, even though she says, when you're good, you're good. She never says you're amazing. You're like, that's the best she can be, is good. But I think she's just like, come in, hammer your nails, do your job, let's get this done. I don't think it was like, get away from me, I don't need you. Do you think it was, I don't want the queen be on set, I want to have my moment? Or do you think she's like, I got this?
I think it was the thought of, you won't make me any better. I'm the artist. I want to give the good art. You just get somebody to fill in because you're a glamour actress. You're a glamour actress. It's like the people who
just go get, but
just go to your trailer and find a nice air conditioned place. It's just disrespectful. If someone is a Hollywood legend,
is, but not purpose.
It's just to tear her down just a little bit more, because there's an easier way to say, hey, I don't need you for this. I can just do it by myself. You know what? Go take the way she said it.
But I think she also is, one thing we know about Betty, and seeing even with recent interviews, you see after this, if you do some research on YouTube, she spoke she was super candid and to the point of rude. But it was just she was brutally honest is what she was. Like she's not somebody that is going to coddle. She's not going to look at how, because again, I look how she's with the daughter. I actually felt she loved the daughter as much as she could. But she doesn't coddle. And by the way, what she spelled out for marriage back then was pretty accurate.
No, for sure.
But, and again, because she's very self-aware. So I feel like she's not the type of person to coddle and go, Joan, relax. She's not. She doesn't know. And Bob's telling her, if you want to learn producing, you got to get results. And that means not being brutally honest. That means doing what you have to do to get the job done. So I think it's more because she's brutally honest. And I think it's because, to what your earlier point was, is like, I don't need you. I'm the artist. I got this. Just go. Shoot, fly. I got this. I don't think it was like, oh, I'll give her a zinger here, because
I don't even think she thinks about giving the zingers anymore. That's the thing. I think she's so invested in her hate for Joan that she just does it naturally.
Just maybe hate or just over it.
It's a jealousy.
Just annoyed at this point?
No, it's the jealousy. It's the jealousy still. The jealousy has been brewing since she was 22. If you're a 40-something-year-old woman pushing 50 and you remember the day someone said, I wish you looked like Joan Crawford, and you're going to recall it in public,
it's a trauma.
Boo. There are some traumatic things I've been through in my life that I will never recall to give someone the satisfaction. But she's been thinking about that the whole time. And imagine, it could have been a joking thing between she and Bob on what happened to baby Jane. It never came up then because she still couldn't admit it to herself that it was bugging her. She finally got a chance to let it out, and it was such an emotional moment for her that this horny man was like, I'm not gonna really touch you tonight because you're just like that. It was real. It was a moment.
The abandoned, right? The title of the episode. She's abandoned in the trailer. She breaks her rule. She drinks. Okay, after the Betty doesn't need her to run lines, and we cut to Mamacita, or her passed out with a bathrobe on, and I love Mamacita obediently sitting up, but with the blanket on because she's freezing because the AC's cranking.
Yes.
And everyone's left. That's a true story, by the way, too. And I'd heard this story for years, that this was the straw that broke the camel's back, is that she was left on set.
But that's come on.
What?
That's pretty terrible.
It was terrible, but not on purpose. No.
You think you're gonna leave Kevin Hart on a set by himself? You think someone's like, oh, hey, we don't have a PA to make sure we get Kevin Hart home?
You really think they knew?
I think she knew.
Who's she?
Betty knew.
But Betty wasn't.
Betty was a producer. Maybe Betty was like.
Then they have big crews and stuff like that. It's not like.
The same way they knew she was coming into town, they never sent her a car. The same way they knew she was coming into her hotel, and Betty was like, oh, I'm just going to get some ice and I'm going to run away.
Because I've worked on a lot of films and I know it's in modern era, but I have seen things, especially on a lower budget film, but this is 20th Century Fox, so maybe you're right.
There were two big stars. I think, Kevin, you give Betty way more passes than... Shout out to Kevin's compassion to Bette Davis.
I just, I feel like she, and people who I knew her, I feel like she just was so obsessed with the pictures, and success. Like she just was such an artist. She just loved the art that I'm hoping that love trumps the hatred of Joan.
Well, you know what? She was so obsessed with the art and the pictures. Why is she still counting how many Oscar nominations she had? That doesn't tell me someone's into the art. That tells me someone's into the accolades and the recognition. Well. So you know what? She and Joan are actually on the same playing field.
So art to get the accolades, or does the accolades back up her love of the art?
I think if you love the art, you don't need an accolade. I think if you love the art, you don't need the... I think when people truly do it for the art, I don't say... She loves the art. I think she loves the art of filmmaking. Right. I think she loves the art of playing a character. But people who are devoted to the art don't need an Oscar.
Okay, so here's what I think goes back to. It goes back to that insecurity of being told you're ugly, you're not beautiful, and you have to validate.
You have to validate yourself
I've
somehow.
got the 11 Oscars.
Yes.
I've got the 11 Oscars. And for the other one, it's like, you're just a dancer, you're not an actress. She's got to validate too. I've got the statues, I've got the statues.
So Betty is not that much above Joan.
Interesting.
As we've come to learn
you know what? You're right.
Episodes.
You know what? I think I would agree with that.
And let's skip to the next. Let's skip to the next.
Please, go ahead.
Because now you'll get it.
It's never enough.
Now they have, it's done. Joan's at her wit's end, and she goes to confront Betty at her hotel room, and she says, you don't have to be so ugly, just be unattractive. And she's like, I'm a character actor, and she stops her and she goes, let me ask you something. How did it feel to be the prettiest girl in the world? And she acknowledged it.
Most beautiful
woman in the world. And Joan goes, I loved every minute of it, but it was never enough. And then Joan turns and says, how did it feel to be the most talented woman in the world? And she said it felt great, but it was never enough.
And that's when you know,
that's when you know.
The same thing, yeah.
It's like, and for two women of that stature to admit their insecurities about one another is a pretty big deal. And I do feel that on Baby Jane, Joan Crawford came out swinging day one with Betty. I feel like the fight might have started with Joan. But this time, I think Joan went into this being serious, and she wanted to bury the hatchet with Betty. And Betty wasn't having it.
Yeah,
because her insecurities got the best of her.
The answer to being more attractive isn't being uglier.
Yeah.
And... I feel like that's such a statement about, I think, some of the uglier sides of Betty. It's being, that's, okay, so you're unattractive. Okay, whether it's your big eyes or you're putting on white makeup, but it's ugly to be cruel.
To be cruel.
And to leave someone, abandon someone, and, so very interesting.
I think it's coming out. I think Joan could have been the nicest woman in the world to her. I don't think it would have helped. That 20-year itch that she needed to scratch, that she will never scratch.
Gonna come out.
It's gonna come out.
God damn. Okay, so BD and Jeremy, aka Jerome.
Yeah.
BD's like, we're getting married, and and again, because Bette is blessed and cursed with such self-awareness. She's, no, you don't want my permission. You don't want my permission. You want my attention. And they have their little back and forth. She turns around to Bob and says, she's not going to win this battle. And Bob's like, it's your daughter. It's not a battle. Yeah. And I think even her response is even worse. And like, you could have come back and said, listen, it's always a battle when you're raising kids and you're a single mom. Yeah. But no, it's, oh, what are you talking about? No, I'm talking about Crawford. Like,
no, she can't get her mind off that movie.
And Crawford and the art, and that's what's more important than,
for sure,
motherhood.
And by the way, every producer, director, actor knows you shoot the scene and then you cut it at the end. There was no reason for her to keep on deliberately stopping Joan's scenes to cut. Like, she knows. She's been on the movie set. She knows you shoot it, then you cut it.
Do we really need to do 2 pages of Yeah.
You know what I mean?
She was pushing buttons.
She was pushing buttons.
And not being a producer.
No, she's being vindictive. That's why I'm Team Joan. Until next week when she burns the house down.
No. All right, here we go. So Harry Potter moment is in Joan's hospital room. The bubblegum music's playing, the older music again, because she's more from that old world, and we see, Bette obviously wanting to be in today's world. When Bob comes there and to greet her, back and forth a little bit, and then she brings out her script suggestions. And he says, well, where's Charlotte going to be? She wouldn't throw some big party. Well, she'll just be under the stairs over on the side watching with those big eyes, which is what she was doing at 22.
Yeah, watching.
With those big eyes. And, just over to the side where the big star,
Joan Crawford,
right, was on stage. You're probably going to get mad at me, but I loved Bob's response where he just said, okay, no, enough. Get your ass back on set. And to me, he got his balls back again. Because she had a reference to his balls, Joan, in the trailer, and says, you gave away your balls.
Yeah.
But he got his balls back there. And he by telling off Bette, too.
Well, finally.
Saying you want to be a producer, you got to get results. Like,
for sure.
That's not producing.
So why did you think that she went home? Because that, I feel, was the moment that triggered her to be okay with BD's wedding.
Because her movie family, her movie husband, her movie best friend, her movie BFF in Victor, her movie husband, it's not perfect.
No.
It's like, he tells them, no, you basically, you fucked up as a producer, You screwed up as a producer, big time, okay? Yeah. Congratulations. You just drove away the star of the movie, and God only knows now what's going to happen to this for your, quote, producing.
Yeah.
Okay? And then we've had Victor earlier kind of be like, yeah, I'm not so much buying into this about you, being down on Joan. And so what she does is she rushes home to the safety of her other family. Well, at least, okay, that didn't work. Now I've got my other family.
Interesting.
So coming home and saying, okay, but I'm the producer. I have creative control.
Yes.
We're going to do your wedding,
my
family,
way.
But we're going to do it my way. We're going to have chimes instead of bells.
I'm in.
Bells gong, like in funerals.
I like when she goes, it's your first wedding. It's the one you will remember forever. By the way, I always say the first one is the dress rehearsal. The first one you marry for love, the second one you marry for business, and the third you marry for companionship.
Or you wait later in life.
But I don't want to wait, Kevin.
Then don't. Then have a good gig. Want to get it done. Get it out of the way.
I'm looking. Do you know anyone?
Hollywood. You can throw a rock and find someone out here. God, I love the scene, the meeting with the lawyers.
Oh my God.
Right?
Yes.
So amazing. Joan at one head, Bette at the other.
Uh-huh.
And I'm the producer now. And even they tell Bette, stop.
Yeah.
Like, we'll ask you to leave.
She's
Like
pushing it too far.
they're there to lop off Joan's head. Let's face it.
Yeah. But it would have been more powerful for her to just sit there and watch and take in as they beheaded the great Crawford. But she had to put her 2 cents in. She had to put her stamp on everything, like she says.
Right.
And it just made her look nasty.
Right.
Especially when you're in, when you're in meetings with those heads of studios, you can't let that insecurity come out. And she did it. She lit a cigarette like a star, spoke like a producer, and acted like a jackass.
And
she lost me on that one.
okay.
I was secretly team her until this episode.
Then you turned.
And then I turned.
So I love talking to the priest about the wedding. And we're talking about the chimes and the bells are for a funeral, which of course she kind of views, right? It's a funeral for their careers. There's a lot of that going on in this whole thing. I think she views weddings as funerals too. But talking about planning the big party, she says it's always a big party, then it's repetition and work. And I think that, again, everything goes back to movies.
Yeah.
Like, okay, the Oscars, it's a party.
And then you go back to work.
It's repetition and work. And she tells her, like, you need to be prepared to do X, Y, and Z and be a staging ground for someone else's ambitions. And the daughter says, well,
duh, I've been doing that
for you. And Betty, who's so quick-witted and self-aware, says, great, then you're going to be a great wife.
Yeah. You're ready.
You're ready.
I taught you well.
I did a great job.
I taught you well.
And your first wedding is the one you miss most. And that's what, like, says to her, like, you think this is just a little phase and I'm coming back to you. I'm not. I'm out. I'm done. And for your information, as soon as you sign that stupid paper, we got married.
Yeah.
Because probably we knew how crazy and controlling you were, that you could pull a rug out on us or do something else. So we couldn't wait. Here's what I will say about BD, who I'm not Team BD. I'm sure you are, now that I just said I am. But I will say about BD is that from our research, married over 50 years.
And had 2 kids.
Who's to say?
Yeah. She knew. But by the way, that was the one thing in her life that she could control because her mother did control everything else. Where she went to school, when she was allowed on set, what parts did she get. So for her to sign that paper, that was BD's release.
I'm released.
That was her release papers.
Do you think those 16 years are so bad? Those first, it's not like it was 40 years.
Bitch, I could only imagine what it was like to be raised by one of those women. I mean, keep in mind the other daughter.
I'm still Team Betty, so I wouldn't want to be raised by Joan. I'd rather be raised by
It's like
Betty.
being raised by Madonna. Can you imagine, like, if your mother was like...
I don't know. I saw Cher last night at an event, and, they're so bigger than life.
It's so bigger than life that you can't really... You're always that person's daughter. You're always that person's son.
I think it's tragic for 8 kids. It's really hard.
It's tough.
It's hard.
It's tough. I would almost rather... I bet you she kept her dad's last name in order to try to keep a safe distance from being in her mother's shadow. It must be tough. So you know what? If she had to write a book to make a few dollars, let her write the book.
Can we go to the... Joan tries again to use sex with the doctor. Is she using sex with him because he's a young, handsome man, or is she using sex to get him to say she's sick?
Yes. Because sex was her weapon. She always used sex to get what she wanted.
And...
it doesn't work anymore.
It doesn't work anymore.
You're done.
So sad. And
so sad.
And then I love the secretary. I love Madam Secretary.
I love her too.
She's amazing. And she says, she basically, as a fan, I'm going to give you advice. Get your ass back to work or you're going to ruin your whole career. And I'm going to have Bob Aldrich remove you from this production. And she's like, don't worry.
I already quit.
Right?
I love when she says, this town attracts narcissists or creates them. Like,
I think it attracts them and brings it out in them.
I agree.
I don't think it creates them.
You know what? I totally agree.
It brings it out and then adds gas to it and like sets it in another direction. So what really, because I've been over that one probably, I've processed that 20 years ago, so I'm fine with that. What I really love is I came out to work.
Wait, I didn't process that for 20 years because I'm only 30.
Okay.
So I need some time to process it.
No, I processed the 20 years of the narcissism. I'm saying
I'm talking about the narcissism. I need to talk about the narcissism.
Okay, go ahead. Then
I need to talk about it because I haven't had 20 years.
Okay, I will tell you.
Let me ask you this question.
It's this. I used to think like this. Does this place make people sick, or does it take the sickness inside them and make them sicker? And I believe it's the latter.
But when do you know you're sick?
No, people don't know unless you're self-aware. Then you're like, you realize it, and then you're halfway there. But most of them don't know.
But like, what if you like? I'm asking for a friend here. I'm not
All right,
asking for
good.
myself.
Good.
Like, when do you know? Because like I've been here for 8 years,
Right.
And I'm always like, God, am I turning into these
Okay.
people?
No. Here's the thing. You are of higher. So okay, this is not a feud after show. I'm sorry. You're of higher consciousness.
Okay.
When you're of higher consciousness, you question yourself.
Yeah. Okay.
You also have a fraud complex. So I'm not as good as everyone thinks. I'm not as good, but you also have other things like where you check yourself and say, like you are, like, man, God, am I?
Yeah.
Lower consciousness is like, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good. Like Joan was put her foot pedal to the metal, and nope. Everyone's trying to talk her out of like, don't do this to Mamacita, George Cukor, this secretary, and she's just like, no,
Spinning.
there's no
Stopping
moment
her.
of, hey, you know what? I've really gotten out of control. There's some things I got to change in my own life. Maybe I'm doing this. No, it's full tilt. So, and you know, it's like that narcissism. Well, most of these people want to perform and get attention. So,
Yeah.
right. So there's got to be a seed in that. And then I think, it's catered to so much out here that, yeah, it just goes to a whole other level. There's that moment in Sunset Boulevard where the director says, we didn't. He feels bad for her when she comes back to visit the set. Do you remember in Sunset Boulevard? And she comes back to Gloria Swanson comes back to visit the set and is being like Joan, like this and that, and just in her own world. In by 10, out by 4. And he's just looking at her with this look like, this is sad. And he basically says, we did this.
Yeah. And that's
It's
what
like Hollywood did this.
in the last episode, that's what Sarah Paulson says. Let them see what they did to her when she accepts the Oscar.
Yeah.
Damn, Hollywood is scary.
It is scary. Well, you have to have good family around you, good friends. And I think you also have to keep checking yourself. You hear these things like Jim Carrey goes on a retreat for like 15 days that, he stays in a hot box and and you think he's a weirdo, but actually, he's on a trying.
He's grounding himself.
He's trying to grow and get and think more and evolve.
Yeah.
Howard Stern, someone who's evolving. Like you just see, he's in therapy all the time, and the way he shows changing, and you have to keep at it
For sure. I could ground myself.
What's that?
I ground myself.
Yeah, well, no, you're already questioning yourself, which is you're fine. But see, these people didn't, and I think now here's the interesting thing about. I say you're halfway there when you're self-aware, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's acting or even life. Here's the scary thing about Bette. She's halfway there in that she's aware of all of it. She's aware. I bet you're aware of her jealousy, aware of the shit she's doing. She's aware of how miserable she is, and she's good with it.
Oh no, and she puts it in a higher gear. She's like, let's go to 4.
Well, she's fine with it. That's what's scary.
That is scary.
That's what's scary. Usually, if you can be halfway there, you're halfway to the finish line when you say, I'm aware of all these problems.
Yes.
Now I'm aware. I'm going to check myself a little bit, or I'm gonna make some changes. But Kathy Bates comes in at the right time as Joan
Blondell.
Joan Blondell, who we pulled up her scene in Grease as the waitress.
I can't believe Joan Blondell did that.
But it's interesting how she was like, I thought it was great what Joan Crawford did.
Yeah, get their attention. But because Joan paved the way for all those women. Joan was the woman. So yes, pave the way, let them see me. I'm not just a pretty face. I'm a person, and you will treat me with respect. I bet you all those women
They looked at her.
Well,
I feel like Joan was Joan Blondell was team Joan, and I felt like Olivia de Havilland's more team Bette.
Well, she had to be. They were friends, and like you, she probably saw only the good in Bette.
Like me.
Like you, Keven.
All right, we go to the newsreel. Okay. The old and this was interesting too. It's 64 where people still go to the movies see a newsreel in the movie theaters. But I think I don't know when. I think it was sometime in the 60s or early 70s. The newsreels got cut out.
Yeah.
I don't remember them in childhood. So, but again, like we're at the point of like we've got Cronkite, We've got, do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
we're getting our news in other places. Interesting choice. They go with the newsreel because I think, again, it's an homage.
To the old school that Joan
Yes.
Crawford was.
So I thought, but it's talking about how she's had cedar cyanide, and again, it's the last of Camelot, you guys. It's the
Yeah.
that whole, like, she's $100,000 worth of just that sugar water facade
and a Dior hospital gown.
Yes, and we know she doesn't have money. We know she does, but it's the last of probably, like, it felt like even the last newsreel.
But it's her art, and she's so damn good at it.
It is her art, but I'm talking about something different now. Not whether it's art or not art. What I'm saying is, this is the fall of Rome. This is the end of old Hollywood.
It is.
We're seeing it, and this is the. So I just thought, again, interesting choice from the creators to use the newsreel rather than the newscaster. George Cukor, the great director, comes in and he tries to talk her out of it. Joan, you were never into revenge, and she's like, and now I am, and now I don't care if the movie gets made. I don't want to be in it. I just want to destroy Bob Aldrich and Bette. Loretta Young and Barbara Stanwyck called me and will not
take food in my mouth.
They won't take food out of my. Well, they won't take the roles, right? The two famous actresses were offered the part allegedly of Charlotte. They won't take it. They won't take food out of my mouth, right? Great response by Cukor. They don't eat. But there's
a great moment.
But there's subtext there.
Yeah.
So it's on the surface, it's ha ha ha. They don't eat because they have to stay skinny for Hollywood. But the subtext is they don't eat because they don't get any roles.
Yes. And by the way, BTW, if someone did that this year or in the last 10 years, honey, your best friend would take the role.
In a second.
That doesn't happen in Hollywood anymore, where someone's afraid of an actress. Like, I think that went out the window a long time ago, where other actresses were afraid of pissing off another actress that hard.
Today, you would be afraid. Today, it's going back in this direction, I think, because you'd be afraid of, if depends if the actor, how beloved the actor is, you'd be afraid of social media.
Oh, for sure.
Oh, you know what I mean? Like, you'd be afraid of that.
Yeah.
But today, you'd be afraid of, if it was painted properly, you'd be afraid of the young, beautiful one taking over for the older woman being pushed out. Or you'd be afraid of, a
white actress coming in to replace a black actress.
Yes, you would be afraid.
Yeah.
So, but this kind of fear, this was different. You're right. It doesn't happen like this, but it does happen. It's going to happen more and more.
Social media has literally changed the game.
Yeah. What did you think about when they've got Vivien Leigh lined up to play the role, and she says Daryl Zanuck wants Vivien Leigh to take Charlotte, and Bette says, "Ugh, she's not. That English girl's gonna do a Southern accent." He's like, "Yeah, she only played Scarlett O'Hara," and then Joan said,
the most famous Southerner ever,
and Joan said, "Not convincing." Explain that to me.
I think
not convincingly.
No. I think Vivien Leigh would have outshined her in that movie, and people would have, her credit would have been Gone with the Wind, which was such a huge credit for her. So in the billing, it would have, in any press release, it would have been like of Gone with the Wind.
Okay, there wasn't any shred of the fact that I look at Gone with the Wind, which I can't even see because it's just such a awful. I
love it.
Even as a black man, isn't that hard to watch that movie?
No, I mean, I've seen worse. There's Rosewood. There's so much more worse. It's just such a romantic.
Okay, so then her as God is my witness at the end. It's just that hammy old 40s acting, like overacting. So Joan wasn't calling to that at all.
No, give me the ham. Give
you the ham, but you don't think Joan was, when she said not convincing. I'm in my brain saying, here's Bette. Here's Bette, who's continued to evolve as an artist.
Yeah.
Okay, the role she did in Charlotte in Baby Jane.
Yeah.
Early in the morning, guys. So the role she did in Baby Jane, she couldn't have done at 24, 25, not just looks wise. I just felt like she was the one that came out of that and she mentions Brando too, but they were the ones that, well, she transitioned out of that old Hollywood very, Buck, I'm going to throw you out the back door.
Yeah,
It was that whole very stagey kind of acting that Brando shattered. And I feel like she was one of the few that she assimilated.
Yeah.
She evolved into that. I don't feel Joan really did as much, but I feel like Vivien Leigh was very much that old school presentational style of acting. So when she says she wasn't convincing and I don't want her for the role, you don't think any of it had to do with the fact that creatively speaking, she wasn't good for the role? You think it was just because she was going to unseat me?
I think part of it is that she held herself to a higher standard because she was Bette Davis and she was a great actress and still is a great actress. I think she held herself to a higher standard and this woman, in her mind, wasn't on her level. But you have to remember, they weren't looking for someone who was on her level. They were looking for someone who could sell tickets, which is what she always said about Joan Crawford. Joan Crawford sold tickets because she was pretty and she was a movie star. She wasn't an actor. So I think she was missing the point that the studio just wanted someone who would sell tickets.
And remind me I want to ask you about Olivia de Havilland by the end of it. So, but they finally get de Havilland on the phone. We see the great shot of Lady in a Cage, which it's supposed to be a pretty good movie. I haven't seen it, but it's so the exposition just I'm in a cage.
No, she goes, I'm stuck in a private elevator.
It was like, and she's like, I don't want to go through that. I'm in my Swiss chalet.
Right. But Olivia de Havilland was one of the women who was the actress who found the rich husband and then didn't want to act, lived happily ever after.
Still alive. The only one left. Yes. 101 years old,
and it's probably still fabulous. She was like the Sophie Loren, like found her happiness outside of the screen.
I like her little thing. You should call my sister.
Yes. And then she goes, I don't do bitches. You should call my sister. Because they had the biggest feud.
Do you think they'll do another feud with them or no?
No, I don't think it was that big.
Too obscure.
But you see, like Bette and Joan started when they were 22.
Joan gets the bad news. Okay, Harry Potter over the old radio. Like it's the old time. Like it's almost
Orson Welles.
It's almost bad. like I mean, if you saw that in a movie, you see that in old movies. It's like that.
Yeah.
Read all about it. It's like or this just in. But it's like she's just stuck in the old world, and it's been done. Olivia de Havilland's been given in wrestling what we call the hot tag.
Yes.
And it's over because she knows de Havilland's a badass actress and the movie's going to go on and they're going to be just fine and she's going to be left to herself and her parties and her drinking and her spiral.
With no mamacita.
Well, all that culminates in her taking the vase and no, and throwing it at Mamacita or through the window, whatever. And then Mamacita, which I love Mamacita for this thing. I said it once. Like, I'm glad that even though she's a servant, she's not, I'm a servant. I have dignity. My job is to serve you, so I do my job.
Yes.
But you will not,
disrespect me.
Yeah, you won't do that. I will not take that from anybody. And I thought that was great. And she walks out, but then it's like,
well, her whole world is
it.
probably done. And you know what? To be completely honest, when we moved to the end of the shot where she's in the plastic bag getting oxygen, she probably actually needed it for the first time. She lost her life. Mamacita was out the door. That bitch couldn't breathe.
Yeah, my world has ended. What is it? You did that to yourself. She said you did it to yourself, Joan.
Oh,
and we keep hearing her career's ended, her career's ended, her career's ended. We're hearing that all the way through.
Yeah, and if you notice
which is her life.
Catherine Zeta-Jones's interview, they say, do you feel bad about ending Joan Crawford's career?
Yeah.
And she says, time ended Joan Crawford's career, not me. And it's true. Women in those days had a expiration date. They weren't making movies.
However, had she gone along or gone through, she could have been in this movie and gotten a little bit more time on the clock.
Yeah, another few months.
So here's my question, and I think Fern probably would be able to answer it better. I think Hush Hush Sweet Child is a great film. I knew about the film before I knew about the feud. It's not Baby Jane, and it's certainly not. We barely remember it. Now we remember. I mean, if you're a Turner Classic Movie fan, you probably remember, but mainstream, I don't think.
No.
Okay, so now we do because of feud. Would it have been a better film and more successful had it been Joan and Bette? Would we remember it?
Yes.
Really? Why?
Because it was a follow-up to such a strong performance in What Happened to Baby Jane that people would have... It would have been a higher ticket sales because Joan Crawford was involved in it, but the tension would also have been higher, and the pressure mounting to the release would have been crazier, and the movie just would have been promoted differently.
It does feel, and again, if you guys, when you guys send us your comments on iTunes or YouTube, I'd love to hear what you guys think of that. Would Hush Hush Sweet Child have been a better film with Joan than Olivia? I feel like it came off like Baby Jane light, and I feel like Olivia, who I love, and I do love, I love her
Shout out
work.
to Olivia.
Shout out to Olivia, but I feel like she was a little softer in the role. I mean, she was fine. She got the job done.
She didn't want to be there.
But it's not the same. Yeah, and you know what? Maybe that came out in her performance too.
She didn't want to be there. She had been in her
I mean,
Swiss
Bob had to go.
chalet.
I mean, that was all true. Bob had to take 10 different, pieces of transportation just to get to her, to talk her into it.
Because Bette wanted her.
Because Bette wanted her. So again, short-term gains, right?
Short-term
We're winning
gains.
battles, but not the war. And there they are all drinking Coca-Cola at the end.
Just to take that picture.
And that seemed mean. That was mean.
But Bette is... This episode, Bette is mean.
Yeah.
She's Regina George. Haha, shout out to Regina George.
Who's Regina George?
Kevin, get out of here.
I'm sorry. Who's Regina George?
Can you cut this?
No.
No,
wait.
Leave that in the comments.
No, wait.
Everybody.
I'm sorry.
Everyone,
no.
go on Twitter.
Why? I have a
Everyone go on
hard enough
Twitter.
life, you guys. Can we
And
stop?
hashtag,
All right.
who is Regina
I'm
George?
going to find out after this. But wait, guys. One thing before, I know, Juliet, you're on. Yeah, I know, because we have to get out of here. No, we need predictions for next week.
I predict that your Twitter is going to be flooded
Stop
with
it.
comments
Stop
about who
it.
is Regina George.
Okay.
But-
come on. Next week, what happens?
I think Joan's going to win.
TV
How
prediction.
I don't know how she's going to win, but Joan is going to win.
No. Nobody wins
Hedda.
this war. Nobody wins this war. I think what you're saying is one more battle will get won by Joan. We know historically nobody wins this war. If we can maybe call a winner, Bette lives 10 years longer, makes a few more films. Nothing I don't think as great as these films, but she's got one more left in it. You have a kick. We call it a kick out in wrestling. So you think Joan Crawford is one more battle to win? Because we know no one wins this war.
You say glass half full. Joan died 10 years earlier, but she was 10 years prettier than Bette when she was in that coffin. Joan wanted to die young and pretty, so she got her wish.
But she was also the last few years of her life. She was She was alone. She was drinking a lot. I mean, she made Trog or whatever that awful movie was.
Well, that was because Christina wrote that book about her.
Well, after she was gone.
Yeah, but she knew it was brewing. Christina, I know, the book came out.
No.
The book came out after she was dead?
Yes. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Juliet, we looked that up before we go. I'm pretty sure. I mean, that would have yeah. I mean, no. And Bette had to live through the daughter writing the book.
She probably loved it.
So I'm sure. Now, here's the thing. Next week, are we gonna? I feel like we're gonna flash forward to their futures.
Okay, I can see that.
Okay, and then I think you got to touch on the parallels of daughters writing books. It's just too.
But Christina never came through.
You're right. We never saw Christina.
I think it's going to be, they're going to flash to the loneliness that they have once all this is done.
Right.
You're going to see a lot of that. The empty house, the no mamacita.
I think there will be regret on Betty's part because she is more self-aware. I think she's going to regret it.
Well, she should, because she went
Okay,
deep.
I know that. They think they both should, but I think she's going to regret that she did it, because at the end, I do believe she loved the art and she loved the play, and all this did was ruin that.
I agree.
You know?
She did love the art.
So next week, we wrap Sweet Charlotte, right? Mm-hmm. And then you think Hedda?
I think Hedda and Joan are going to go on guerrilla warfare, and it's not going to be nice.
All right.
Because she's got Bette Davis.
All right. Well, Justin, you've said it all. I have some research to do, apparently.
Who's Regina George? Can anyone believe that he said, who is Regina George?
Race rap ASAP, please. That's what I get. All right, Juliet, get us out of here. You guys, Justin, where do we find you?
At The Lady Sitter on Instagram and Twitter.
And TV, can we say?
Now, on May 1st, you can see me live on Daily Pop on E! 12 o'clock, everyone. 12 o'clock.
Bravo, bravissimo at me, at Undergaro, and check me out tonight on The Tomorrow Show, thetomorrowshow.com, at The Tomorrow Show, Mondays and Thursdays, plus we're up on iTunes and YouTube. You guys, I'm so sad we only have one more of these left. Thank you for your patience with us and dealing with Team Joan versus Team Bette and our ridiculous bias. But I think this is one of the greatest series I've seen in a long time, and I'm very, very grateful to be doing this and be watching.
So happy to fight with you.
Bye, guys.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Keven Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
From executive producers Maria Menounos,
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.